Hello and welcome back to Run Outdoors in a nice little woodland somewhere in Coventry. Now, today's question is, did Pope Gregory XIII have ADHD? We will never know for real, but I'm here to explore the possibility and maybe even the likelihood that he could have. So, what makes me think that Pope Gregory XIII had ADHD back in the 1500s? Well, in 1582, oops, sorry about that. In 1582, Pope Gregory created the Gregorian calendar. That's why it's called the Gregorian calendar, because it's named after him. That's the calendar we know and use today. So people are talking nowadays, and I've been talking about it since I was a child, how the weather seems to be later and later, i.e. snow used to snow in October, now you're lucky if it snows in December. This year, or the previous year just gone by, I was sunbathing and wearing sunglasses in the woods. It was sunny a minute ago. Yeah, I was sunbathing in October. This year, just last week, we had 3 inches of snow. Everything was called off. Jobs, trips, buses slowed down. Everything came to a halt in Britain. By 12 o'clock, the snow had melted and we were sunbathing. It was ridiculous. Nobody could figure out what was going on. This is just a natural weather. It's not difficult to understand that the weather is the weather, and it will do what Mother Nature tells it to do, and Mother Nature is unpredictable, as you've seen with all the different things that go on around the world, from storms to floods to droughts. All major countries have at the moment there's a giant crack going across Africa, threatening to turn part of Africa into an island separate of major African mainland Africa. So, get back to the subject. We're talking about the weather and its changes, especially in Britain. We could have 4 seasons in one day. There's a song about it. We've all experienced it, and Britain is pretty famous for it, but people are saying now that the seasons are changing and it's getting later and later and later. It's maybe the world's off its axis, maybe it's tipping, maybe it's global warming. My theory is, when Pope Gregory was creating the Gregorian calendar, he plainly and simply lost track and focus, just as most people with ADHD do. Interesting swing in the woods. So this actual task of creating the new Gregorian calendar would have been a massive challenge for anybody, even today. Obviously calculators and that lot, but if you want to go back to the 1500s where they didn't have all these mathematical solving devices and that, you would find it really challenging just to come up with the basic of a calendar that would work year in, year out. My theory is behind February, on February the 29th. It's almost like Pope Gregory got to a certain stage and lost focus. He got to the end of February, he was like, oh, should I have 28 days in February? Should I have 29? Oh, we're a bit short. I don't know why he didn't nick a day off June or something like that. But it looks to me like he was doing a job, something happened, maybe a major event, maybe something that could be small but could have been major, and we have no idea that he was involved with it, and it took his focus away. And instead of doing the fine calculations around the end of February, he just said, sod it, it's going to have to be 28 days, and I'll put another day in there every 4 years just to even it out and make it, that sounds about right. And that's exactly what somebody with ADHD would do. Exactly. They lost focus and they just finish it off straight away and move on. Is that really a theory? Is that a possibility? Well, I had a calculation. I did a calculation. Not a very in-depth one. Spent half an hour or so doodling on a bit of paper, doing a bit of mathematics. I'm not a mathematician, I don't pretend to be, but it worked out. And as soon as you start say, oh, do you know what, maybe if we, instead of every 4 years, we changed it, the February, to having 29 days every 3 years, that makes a massive difference. As does, hold on, let's just give every day every day in February, not every 4 years, but every day in February, every February month, 29 days. Don't change it. That does catastrophically change the amount of days. And if you did that, my theory is, in the same amount of time as it's got to get here to change, you would 50 years time we would now be having winter at Christmas. But then 50 years time in front of, this is my ADHD coming in 50 years time it would be back to normal. So Christmas Day would be the coldest day of the year and there'd be snow, but in 100 years time we'd be reverting to Christmas Day being in August or somewhere like that, you know, maybe October. So if you mathematicians out there want to put pen to paper, get your computer out, you probably, if you're good on the old programming, you could probably solve this in an afternoon. And maybe it's something as simple as, say, instead of every 4 years have a 29th day, it could be every 5 years or every 3 years. We've got to add an extra day in that calendar somewhere along the line if we want to change it. Just adding a day over 100 years would bring us back beyond what we had 50 years ago. So maybe it's somewhere in there. The calculations are, well, they're there to be done. And if you've got the patience and perseverance to do them, you might solve this problem to the whole world. Along with the daylight saving time, my simplest version of that is just spread it half an hour either way and just leave it, stop changing it. It's not that important. So tell me below what you're thinking. How does my theory hold water? Does it make sense? Is it too basic? Am I too basic? Is it just the simplest version of the obviousness that this great intelligent person did this 500 years ago and nobody wants to question it or do anything about it? I think every 3 years, instead of 4 years, have 29 days in February. It might not be sufficient or close enough to have a long life, i.e. 300 or 400 years, but maybe it could solve the problem if it really matters to you. I don't care, because at the end of the day the trees go green when the snows disappear. Nature knows what it's doing. It's our timing that's off, that's all. So maybe Pope Gregory did have ADHD, and that simple little fact that somebody disturbed his concentration meant that he gave up on the whole subject at the last minute. He maybe could have solved it and pinpointed it right down to like the 24-hour clock. So, like I say again, thanks for joining me on Run Outdoors. If you've got any theories of your own, please put them to me and I will see what I think about them and get back to you. I do answer all my emails anyway, all my comments that are below. So maybe it's going to boggle your mind, but it's something to think about. So, Run Outdoors, happy camping, take care.